This is Denise with Herbal Alchemy again, and I want to go ahead and start my lecture on herbs and chakras. And basically, I've been, part of the Casey Metaphysical community for a while now, and I think it's great that they're starting in a completely different format. And as far as my business, I've been a part of this community for a while, doing different types of herbal products, and I'm mostly known for my teas. I do have a line of chakra teas that, after a lot of research and intuitive, study on it, I've gleaned quite a bit, and essentially I'm going to be sharing that with you guys today. So as far as chakras, there are 7 chakras that are centers in our body in which energy flows through. And so basically, the idea behind that, it's in Western culture, a concept similar to that of prana can be traced back as far as the 18th century. And so essentially, that energy coming through the body, people like Mesmer did study that, the idea of 7 main chakras was something that was brought about in 1918, that became most popular in the West. Largely through the translation of 2 Indian texts, which I'm not going to butcher for you guys, but they were translated by a Sir John Woodruff, otherwise known as Arthur Avalon, and his book called The Serpent Power. And so as far as, that's kind of the introduction to the idea of chakras to the West. But the concept has, been around for, a very, very long time, in Indian culture. Essentially, you've got a total of 7 chakras, and, they're associated with being, through the spine of the body moving up to the top of the head. And so essentially each one of them connects to, certain nerve and nerve endings and organs in the body. And, they have certain and spiritual states that they're tied to. And, essentially the idea of the chakra otherwise means wheel. And so if you can imagine the concept of having something that looks like a rainbow that starts with, a violet at the top and ends with red at the bottom, and corresponds with each part of the body in being color coded like the rainbow. Those particular energy centers are thought to be spinning, and that, when those are spinning properly, that the body is in good balance and harmony. But when they're blocked, they can lead to certain types of illnesses. And so essentially, I'm going to go ahead and cover each of those different chakras, and then talk a little bit about what kind of herbs relate to them. And so, that's one of the things that, if you're wanting to kind of bring more balance into your body, using, your food as your medicine, is one way that you can kind of target those specific areas for, things to improve the mind, body, and the spirit. And so as far as, we'll start with the very top, the crown chakra. It's tied to the pineal gland, the central nervous system and muscular system, as well as the skin. And then you have the third eye chakra, which, so the crown is here, the third eye would be here. It deals with the pituitary gland, as well as the brain and neurological system, eyes, ears, nose. And then you have the throat chakra, which deals with the thyroid, as well as, the throat, esophagus, trachea, mouth, jaw, teeth, neck, and vertebrae. And then that moves down to the heart, which is the associated with the thymus, heart, circulatory system, ribs, breast, thymus gland, lungs, shoulders, arms, hands, and diaphragm. And moving down, you have the solar plexus, which deals with the pancreas or adrenal system, as well as the stomach, adrenals, pancreas, upper intestines, liver, gallbladder, middle spine. And then below that is the sacral chakra, which deals with the gonads, sexual organs, large intestine, lower vertebrae, pelvis, hip area, and the urinary tract and the bladder. And finally, at the very base of that is the root chakra, which is the immune system, prostate, spinal column, rectum, legs, bones, feet. This is often, the part of the chakra that energizes the body and increases overall health. So as far as, when those particular things are in balance, we often will find that, those things will, your whole body will function better because of it. And they are tied to certain states of consciousness. And I'm going to do my best to try to show you this diagram. Right here is the example of what the chakra system looks like and where it's tied to, and the spiritual parts of the body. It is tied to different frequencies and colors. So your crown chakra is purple, third eye chakra would be kind of indigo blue, throat being the sort of a lighter blue, and then you've got the heart chakra, which is green, solar plexus, which is associated with yellow, and then sacral orange, and root chakra red. And each one of them corresponds to these different sort of, spiritual aspects, emotional aspects in the body. So spirituality, awareness, communication, love, healing, as well as, wisdom and power, and then sexuality, creativity, and then at the very base, basic trust. So that is one of the different things that you can take a look at. It's a simple diagram, but there are other symbols that are kind of associated with that as well. So often you'll see these as being, and I'll go ahead and give you another diagram that kind of shows them a little bit better. If I can get this to blow up properly for you guys, and be scrunched down at least small enough that I can have it be full screen for you. And that might be a way for you guys to also be able to recognize these different types of things that you'll see in if you ever get into a little bit more of the study of this. They actually do have different symbols that are associated with each of the chakras as well. And so this is something that I'm pulling up for you right now. So that way, you can go ahead and also take a look at this, because this is definitely a study that is not easily covered in about a short little lecture. So these are the different symbols that you can see with the different parts of the body. This is one of those that, you can take a look at. And so the top on this is, you have each of these are based in like Hindu symbols. And so if you ever come across them, this is going to be something that you're going to see. And this also goes back to some of the more spiritual aspects. So when people talk about their crown chakra, they're looking at their connection and their knowledge and their unity to some higher sort of consciousness. You've also got your sixth chakra, which people talk about often as being the third eye. People will want to expand their psychic abilities and all the things associated with that. And your fifth chakra, you're talking about your speech and self-expression. And then the fourth chakra is all about your love and compassion, and things associated with the heart, matters of the heart. And then you've got your solar plexus. You've got your power and freedom to be yourself, is associated with that. And then you've got your lower chakras with, the sense of, your sacral, has to deal with your emotion, energy, creativity, as well as like sexuality. And then you've got the red chakra, with the root chakra being red. It's instinct, survival, sense of security is tied with that. So, often, which one of these chakras, if they're out of balance, will actually be reflected in sort of that person's state of mind and consciousness. And so that is something that you can do a little bit more study on, but those are kind of the basic ideas behind that. Okay. And let's see here. So, moving on with this, and like I said before, the chakra, it's a Sanskrit word meaning wheels or circles, and so often you'll talk about different flow within the body. Now, as far as different herbs and things that you can use to kind of balance out each one of those chakras, there are other steps you can take, yogic practices and other kinds of energy healing work that can target those different parts of the body, as well as meditations. But food is often something that is tied in with this, as well as different types of herbal remedies. And I'm going to sort of start from the bottom and work my way up. So essentially, the root chakra at the base of the spine, often if that's out of kilter, everything else in our lives is kind of up in the air. So, it's the part of that chakra that connects us with the earth and our sense of survival. And so that's also where, the body toxins are released. So the thing is that the root chakra doesn't just grounds us physically, it also, keeps us, in being present. And so often when you have problems with this area, it can lead to problems with the legs, the feet, the rectum, as well as the immune system, depression, autoimmune deficiencies. So if your body's not processing all those toxins and is in a state of, fight or flight, response, the root chakra is often, the one that needs to be targeted. And the kind of herbs that you would want to use for that are things that are very much root-based types of herbs. So things like dandelion root, to help with the depression and gallbladder and, the high blood pressure, as well as, foods like, carrots and potatoes, parsnips, radishes, onions, garlic, anything that has a root, gives you a little bit more a sense of being planted somewhere. And so some of the different, types of things that you can get into, like I said, dandelion, but you can also look at, burdock or yellow dock or, other types of, different roots and whatnot, and bark as well. So things like cinnamon and, clove, rosemary, red raspberry leaf, licorice. Often, you look at the things that are really tied to, things that have to do with the immune system. You're going to see, some tie-ins with things like echinacea and plantain and things that like golden seal, ginseng. Those are the kinds of things that you're trying to balance out some of that. And so as far as all of that, you can look at lots of different things that you can incorporate. Like I said, go for your root vegetables. If you do, like a nice good, solid stew with those kinds of vegetables. It's, no wonder if we think about, things that settle us, often your potatoes and, carrots and things like that, those are considered comfort foods. So, if you're dealing with kind of that sense of needing to be grounded, it doesn't surprise me much when you can turn to those kinds of foods and feel a little bit better, about what's going on in the world. And so as far as, other associations, you also have anything that's associated with that deep red color and whatnot, tends to be like peppers and cayenne and that sort of thing are also associated with this just because they have that color association. But they also have a very good grounding sort of, sense to them. Like I said, things like cinnamon and clove and different types of spices, tend to sit really well. You think about during the winter curling up with things like hot cider that's spiced or mulled wine. Those are the kind of earthy kinds of things, or a good chai tea, can sometimes be very grounding. So other things that you can kind of look into, you have, as far as different types of teas, like I said before, things like chai, those very earthy flavors are things that, have that grounding kind of, quality to them. So the next chakra that I'm going to go ahead and go into is the sacral chakra, which is associated with orange. And, this is a chakra that, like I said before, is associated with things that have to do with like the sexual organs. Basically this is a lot of where our, creativity and sexual expression and, everything sort of, that is unencumbered by the ego kind of sits. And when this chakra is blocked, it can lead to eating disorders, urinary tract problems, reproductive disorders, occasional headache, fever, emotional imbalances. And so some of the different, things that you can take in for something like this, calendula is associated with this because of that color of orange, but it's also, one of those very, brightening kind of herbs. You can also look at, things like gardenia, sandalwood, as far as different types of scents and feels. Sandalwood oil, that sort of thing is associated with that. But as far as like the herbal side of that, as far as eating, calendula, coriander, fennel, licorice, cinnamon, vanilla, damiana, dong quai, lemon balm, cranberry, apples, oranges, all of those are associated. And so you can even throw in things like sweet paprika, sesame seeds, caraway seeds. Those are some other things that are good for that particular region. You also can get into things like wood betony is also, something that, is part of that equation as well. So, a lot of the things that you're going to be looking at are any kind of, thing that's good for those, sexual organs as well. So, you want to go ahead and nourish that part of the body. Because if it's stifled, a lot of our creativity and passion comes from there. And so people might not have the motivation to, really put themselves out there when that's all blocked. So, because if you think about, where the association, that you might find with that, often your, your passion, your sexuality, and your creativity all ride in the same cart. So that's something that you're going to, if you can help to support that part of the body, you're going to see often that your creative energy comes back as well. So the next chakra that I'm going to discuss is the solar plexus, which is associated with yellow. And basically it is, the chakra that is right here, and it's right below the heart. And it's the power center of the body. It's your positive self-control. And when this chakra is blocked, we tend to feel unworthy and have low self-esteem. And our emotional state is one of depression and anxiety. We tend to be doubtful and mistrusting towards others. And this can lead to a plethora of physical problems, things like poor digestion, ulcers, diabetes, liver and kidney problems, anorexia, bulimia, or even intestinal tumors. To unblock the energy flow, one can use things like, for oils, it would be like lavender, bergamot, rosemary oil, and bergamot's great for the digestive system. Just like any kind of, if you're looking at different things to take in, things like, orange is good for this, and lemon. If you look at things that alkalize the stomach, if you have too much stomach acid, that kind of thing plays into it. But things like rosemary, marshmallow, are other things that are associated with this, with the digestive tract. You're looking at things like cinnamon, mint, ginger, melissa herb, as well as, cumin and fennel. So, things that help with digestion. A lot of times when you think about when your confidence is suffering, often people will feel it in their stomach. They'll have butterflies in their stomach. Well, that's where that comes from, because that's the place where that energy sort of rests. And so, often when you have issues with that particular chakra, it's going to come out as indigestion, or just, that queasy stomach feeling, and that, not feeling kind of set right there. And so, if you can address those parts of the body, you can actually, help with that, sense of confidence, to kind of go out and do what you need to do, because it helps with your self-esteem kind of sits in there. Because that's associated with things like the digestive system and the liver and whatnot. So, the color associations as far as food, you can definitely bring those in, things like spices and different types of food that are colored, in that family, that are naturally colored that way, would be good, for that. So, coming back to things like turmeric and ginger and whatnot. So as far as other things that, you can do, making a nice big pot of soup that has that ginger and that, some of the celery and the turmeric and fennel and whatnot. So when you're looking at, a lot of Indian food in that category, it tends to have, that bright yellow from the turmeric, and that's part of that. And, oddly enough, it does help the liver and digestion. So, so all of those things are connected. Now the next chakra that I want to discuss is the heart chakra, which is associated with the color green, the center of love and compassion and forgiveness, in our body's energy system. And when that chakra is blocked, we tend to feel disconnected and have trouble loving ourselves and other people. We tend to experience poor circulation on the physical level, as well as lack of empathy on the emotional level, and lack of devotion on the spiritual level. Many issues of love, grief, hatred, anger, jealousy, fears of betrayal, of loneliness, as well as the ability to heal ourselves and others, is centered around that chakra. Now, a tea or tincture made of hawthorn berries increases, trust in the process of life and encourages you to feel safe in following your heart. So it also helps to strengthen the heart and the blood vessels. You can also use things like cayenne, jasmine, lavender, marjoram, rose, basil, sage, thyme, cilantro, parsley. A lot of these, are associated with, like other members in the mint family. They tend to be very, bright green, and, they have a strong green color associated with them. But they're also, some of these are good for heart health. Cayenne is good for circulation. Parsley is good for a healthy heart as well. So when you can kind of incorporate some of these, you're going to strengthen that particular chakra. So other types of things, getting into things like elderflower, would be another. But rose is also commonly associated with the heart chakra, even though it's not green. It's bright red or different colors, but there's some definite associations there. And so as far as other things that kind of play into that, you're also looking at any kind of warming or comforting foods that you have a lot of love for. So if you're wanting to warm to that chakra, think of things that were made with love when you were growing up as a child, or experiences that you had with other people with foods that really warmed your heart. And often there's a lot of healing to that. So that's something also to keep in mind. But you also want to look for any kind of food that helps with circulation, because your circulatory system is tied to the heart and that feeling. So as far as, where that's at, anything that you can kind of build that sense of trust and love, that you can bring in, is good. So as far as that, I'm going to move on to the next chakra, which is the blue chakra, which is the throat chakra, or, so essentially, this chakra is largely responsible for, self-expression and communication. And when this chakra is clear, our speech becomes uplifting, wise, and we can communicate our intent clearly. And an unbalanced throat chakra, leads to thyroid problems, laryngitis on the physical level, codependency on the emotional level, unclear thoughts on the mental level, and insecurity on the spiritual level. So, being able to communicate, all of that comes through. And often your body will feel that, through some of those symptoms, where, maybe you're coughing and not, experiencing, the ability to speak. So, as far as, all of that, this is a chakra that is, associated with that codependency and unclear thoughts and insecurity. And, when, we often speak without thinking, we have trouble expressing ourselves in an authentic way. And so it's also responsible for nervousness, for fear and anxiety. So often, you can hear it in somebody's voice when they have a lot of anxiety. It comes out in that part of the body. You can often, our ability to address situations properly and be able to, talk to people about that. That's something that, will come out in, the throat chakra. So, things that, you can also look into would be, for as far as herbs that can help with that. Red clover will help with allowing the free flow of communication and self-expression. And a cup of red clover tea can kind of unlock, those emotions and thoughts that are waiting to be spoken. And, apparently, research has been conducted, by the University of Maryland that shows that lemon balm is capable of healing several ailments, including, the thyroid, as well as, the types of oils that you can get into would be like eucalyptus for decongestion. And the kind of herbs that are associated with it are things like coltsfoot, peppermint, sage, salt, lemongrass. I know salt is not an herb, but gargling with salt water does help with the throat. The other things that will kind of associate with that, any of your mint family plants are kind of tied to that, as well as lemon and marshmallow. Anything that soothes those membranes in the throat. And of course, any blue colored, type of herb or food that you can kind of use, you can see some benefit with, things like, if you look at your berries, like blueberry and whatnot, those are foods that are colored in that family that you can definitely incorporate. And any kind of herb, spice, or food that benefits the lungs or soothes the throat or the voice is tied in with that. So those are things that, so if you think about, people often put lemon in their tea, singers will clear their throat with that. A lot of people, when they have a sore throat, they'll do, your different kinds of peppermint, as well as, other kinds of, things that, can help with all of that. So, you can look at things like horehound and whatnot are associated with the throat as well. So the next, chakra that I want to get into would be the third eye chakra. And so that's often one that is a fascination for a lot of people who are into the metaphysical sort of aspects of things, because it is associated with intuition, but it's also associated with the pineal gland that is linked to a lot of spirituality throughout a lot of different practices in the world. Now, when this chakra is blocked, we tend to lack imagination and intuition, resulting in poor decision-making and self-deception. Physically, the third eye weakness may manifest as an eye or ear problem. Headaches, migraines, insomnia, even nightmares fall into this. And so, often when things are not going well in your headspace, it's hard for you to have a sense of, proper intuition and vision for what's going on. And so, all of those things are kind of associated. So, if you're caught up in your own headspace, it's hard to be looking outward with that third eye. And so, you're not allowing yourself to kind of, use your intuition and trust that, that understanding of the world to get through some of your problems. So some of the herbs that are associated with that are things like mint, jasmine, eyebright, because eyebright helps you to see both the light and dark sides as part of the whole, and it also is used to cure eye problems. Now, mint has also been found useful in curing depression, migraines, and memory loss. I would also look at things like holy basil, which is Tulsi, St. John's wort, things along those lines. But mint also helps increase the connectedness between the mind and the body. The herbs and spices that can help energize and heal any imbalances in the third eye chakra are things like juniper, mugwort, poppy, rosemary, lavender, and poppy seed. Notice the associations with that color of purple. So that's something that is incorporated there. Now, as far as other types of things, anything that helps with, headache and migraines, so you're looking at things like meadowsweet, valerian, feverfew, chrysanthemum, all of those things help as well. But, like I said before, the color associations with some of these things. Lavender, interestingly enough, you're looking at, things that can help with anxiety and with, easing, that often lavender oil you're able to use, on your temples, mint, peppermint oil, to help alleviate things like migraine and whatnot. So, those associations are definitely there. That purple, lavender, plays into some of that. So, it's any of those sorts of herbs and things that strongly enhance or awaken the senses are also kind of, tied in with that. So your sense of smell and, having that, that clarity, so, some people will go for things along those lines as well. So I am going to go ahead and move on to the next herb, or not the next herb, but the next chakra, which is the crown chakra. And a lot of people, make this association as well. And the crown chakra is one of those that connects us to universal divine energy. And this chakra is associated with things like wisdom, enlightenment, and transcendence. And when our crown chakra is cleansed, we experience the divine union of cosmic love, stretching out forever. Our unique frequency is in tune with the cosmic orchestra. Everything comes into place when you are aligned with that chakra. Now when it's blocked, that's when we feel like we're closed off or disconnected spiritually, and as though we were living without any direction or purpose. On a physical level, it can lead to depression, nervous system disorders, migraine, amnesia, ADD, dyslexia, and in the most extreme cases, cognitive delusions and mental illness. And so often when this chakra is out of balance, a whole lot of other, sort of mental issues kind of come into play here. And so one of the, different things that, again, lavender's pulled in with this, as well as, things like blue lotus, to assist in opening that chakra, are really useful here. Other types of things that, you can kind of get into, because the thing about lavender is that it's supposed to bring you into alignment with the divine wisdom, and so it helps with, things like meditation. But, it's one of those things you can incorporate, while that lotus, is often used, to kind of help, with enhancing, meditation as well. Now you can use, these different things to kind of, you can take them in as tea or aromatherapy or oils, and you can try to, connect with their vibrational qualities. And it's the same with any kind of herb or food that you ingest. So you're bringing those sorts of things into your life to help, balance out those chakras. And so, with crown chakra specifically, you're trying to reconnect with that divine wisdom. And so, when you're getting into the kinds of herbs and spices that you're wanting to bring in, there are those that, you're going to notice that there's kind of an overflow that kind of passes on through to the next chakra. So you're going to see some of the things that are associated with the third eye passing on, into things like with the crown chakra. Because as you see, you move up through the body, some of these things carry over. And, some of them, interestingly enough, are, dynamic in that, they affect multiple systems in the body. And so they can help to balance the body as a whole. And so, sometimes you're going to see some of those same herbs coming up in different chakras for that reason. But as far as the crown chakra, you're looking at, things like eyebright, juniper, mugwort, poppy, rosemary, lavender, poppy seed, lotus, sage, angelica, and anything that has that, indigo color to it. And so that's going to be something that you can incorporate. So eat those foods, things like grapes and different kinds of berries as well fall into that, that dark blue. So, that's going to be, and sometimes, that color is also kind of more of a, like a purple sort of rosy color. When you look at the colors that I showed you on that, on a couple of those pictures. So, it's very much, think about that as being kind of that transition through the rainbow, and, incorporate some of these different herbs and foods in a way that can help you balance out, that whole system. Because, our body is not, necessarily disconnected from itself. And so sometimes when you're dealing with one system that's yelling, louder than the rest, once that fire gets put out, you start to notice that there are other things that might need some improvement. So as a whole, all of these things are connected in their own way as well. So it's good to kind of keep that in mind, when you're looking at this as an overall system. So, that's just a little bit as far as, the chakras and herbs. Like I've always said before, your food is your medicine, and, be good to yourself, eat the right things. So as far as, any questions that anybody might have, feel free to go ahead and post them in the comment section. And, I look forward to, any kind of communication or anything that you guys might have coming my way. And be good to yourself and stay safe out there. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this. And, you guys have a great night, and enjoy all of the other things that we have to offer with our virtual fair. And thank you for sitting in, and have a great night. Bye-bye.